Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Shane Combs of SVC Sports Zone, and I'm here with my brother Matt, and we're ready to get going here, expanding the Zone Season 3. Throughout the first two seasons, had 39 shows. We're coming at you here to start season number 3 with our 40th show. And Matt, it's good to be back. I know it's been what did we say there, since December, since we've last come at the listeners and our viewers. But good to be back. Just kind of talk to me a little bit about your excitement level here for season 3 and what you think we have to offer.
Yeah, Shane, it's good to be back. When you and I started this, I think we always felt like the summer was probably going to be the biggest bulk of when we record. We try to mix some others in, but as people who know us know, we have sort of demanding professions in terms of coaching and administrative, and those things take time. And so summer is a great time for us to record some of these shows, and hopefully we can at least have several here over the next 3 months, and hopefully keep it going from there. But I think obviously a lot of factors, factored into us taking a little bit of a break, but it's good to be back. And I think we have some good topics.
Well, I really think we do. Our topics, we always try to be relevant with what is going on. I think people will see that as we get into shows 41, 42, 43 here over the next couple of weeks. But, here for show 40 to get started tonight, Matt, I thought it was just relevant that, we're here at the end of the school year. For me as a baseball coach, just finishing up my 27th year as high school baseball coach, I always feel like when you come to the end, it's a good time for reflection. So that's kind of where I want to go tonight. First, I want to let our listeners, our viewers know, thanks so much to Dr. Chris Good Health Chiropractic Center. I know he's always supported so much of what we do, and will continue to do that throughout the summer. But Matt, as I start the show tonight, I guess I wanted to touch on something you just said. About a year ago today, I was getting ready to take on a different type of challenge. I was stepping out of the classroom into becoming a principal. And I just finished up my first year as a principal, certainly a lot of reflection that I'm going to get into throughout the show tonight. But you're kind of taking on a career change. I wanted to kind of start there. Our listeners who know us really well probably know more about it, but I know some of our listeners throughout kind of know you as a long time successful Vinton County basketball coach, and you're kind of taking a step in a different direction. Maybe go over that to start tonight, and that'll kind of jumpstart us into where I want to go with tonight's show.
Yeah, I'll be taking on a little bit of a different role in terms of an assistant principal's job. Still be doing the athletic director, which I'm pretty used to, which I've been doing for 11 years or so, I guess. But we'll be adding that assistant principal's piece at Uniota. I'm excited about it. Anytime I've spent 22 years at Vinton County, so obviously a big part of my heart is there, and I know a lot of people, but Uniota is certainly home to me. It's where I grew up. It's where I still live. And I know a lot of people there, but I also am going to meet a lot of new people there, and I'm excited about that. And it's just I think it's the right thing for me right now. It just kind of fell into place the right way as I decided to get out of coaching to spend a little bit more time with my two boys. And then, it was a blessing that the Uniota job happened to be open at that time. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It is going to be a different challenge. Anytime you take on something new, it can be a little bit, there's some unknowns there, and I'm anxious to get started for sure.
Yeah, Matt, we're probably, throughout our career now, we've been, in our adult life here, 20 plus years in our career, and we've pretty much stayed put in one particular area, and we're starting to go through some different changes and so forth. I don't know if scared's the right word. I know it's not, but like nervous, I guess, apprehensive. What goes through your mind when you think of taking on a new challenge, or people out there in leadership that might either A, be thinking about taking on a new challenge, or B, they are going to take on a new challenge? What are some of the emotions, feelings you're going through as you kind of start to mentally prepare for the upcoming challenges?
For me, I, it's more of excitement for me than anything. I mean, there's probably always a little bit of anxiousness, Shane, whenever you take on something new, right? I mean, because I don't care how much you think you're prepared, there's going to be growing pains in that whenever you do something new. We've talked about it as coaching before on this podcast a million times, right? There's a difference when you move 18 inches over from an assistant coach to a head coach, even, right? We've talked
Isn't
about
that the
that.
truth? Yes, yes.
And there's a difference when you take on a different administrative responsibility. There's a difference when you go to a different school that you're not familiar with, how they operate necessarily. So uh, I know going in, and I think every person who's in this situation should know going in that you're going to have some growing pains. There's going to be a learning curve. But for me, it's exciting. I think it's when when you, like you and I are veterans at this, sometimes it recharges your batteries. I know talking to you, when you left the classroom and you went into being an administrator, I think it kind of got your juices flowing again. You do the same thing for a long time, and no matter how hard you try to get better year after year after year, it's easy to get a little bit, stagnant in it or whatever. So I'm just excited about something totally fresh and new.
Well, I think, as we've talked so much on the shows over the first two seasons about the importance of reflection, and after every practice, after every lesson as a teacher, after every time we speak to someone, you have that reflection time. I guess tonight more where I was going from, and it's kind of ironic that we're sitting here talking about reflecting, and my first question to you is about looking ahead already to the
Right.
challenges ahead. But I do think they go hand in hand, and I guess where I wanted to really go next is in all of your years, when you think of stepping away at the end of an entire year of AD and you're overlapping into your next, or as a basketball coach, having a little bit of those particular moments in the off season where you really reflect or so forth. What's the biggest key between not having the knee jerk reaction yet not having a lack of urgency in the off season where you sit around and you kind of don't get started on the next task at hand. Yet that's something I think I've seen coaches, I've seen teachers really they go to quote unquote recharge the battery, but sometimes it's the extreme. If that makes you see where I'm going with this, like
Right.
sometimes it's a knee jerk reaction. They don't give themselves time to remove themselves from the situation, and perhaps they're too close to the situation still. Maybe they quit. Maybe they do something in the program that's a bit extreme that's not needed. Or sometimes maybe they step away for too long and they get a little bit lazy. I know I've done that a little bit in my career at times where I'll be exhausted at the end of coaching two varsity sports and at the end of a school year. And sometimes I'll find myself maybe not get after it as much as I need to in the off season or so. What where have you found that balance? Is there a trick that you can talk about leadership wise that finds that balance between that knee jerk reaction while still really getting after what you need to improve?
Well, I think that we've talked about it before. At the end of every season, or if you're an administrator, maybe at the end of your school year, that reflection's important. That staff meeting at the end, however you do it, that exit meeting. We do it. We've done it every year as coaches in our program. We always have an end of the year meeting, and we always tell our coaches the same thing: question everything. This is the time to question everything we do.
I like that.
Why do we do what we do? And I don't care why do we warm up the way we warm up? Why do we stretch before practice the way we stretch? Anything. And if the answer to any of that is, well, that's just the way we've always done it, well, then that needs to be looked at. That's not really good enough. That's not a good enough reason to do it. But if the answer to that is, we really think it's the best way, then you're probably in good shape. But I think too, what you're saying, when you do question it and realize that it's not where it needs to be, then I think the key is to not react too emotionally to that, but rather say to yourself, okay, is this something we need to throw out altogether and revamp? Is it something we can tweak? Because I think sometimes we have a tendency when something works to think it's the best thing since sliced bread, right? I mean, it's just like, and when something doesn't work, You've seen it in sports. Let's take basketball. If you win a championship playing 1-3-1 zone, well then that's how you win a championship, right? Well, what if the next team you have doesn't have the personnel to play 1-3-1 zone? Or, what if you tried to play zone and it blew up in your face and you weren't very good? Does that just mean you never play zone again? I think sometimes we have a tendency to just all or nothing. And we do it in schools. You've seen it in schools, right? Where you have a discipline issue within your building, whatever that is. And, what can we do to fix that? Well, do you just throw out everything you've ever done and start over, or hey, some of what we do is pretty good. Can we tweak this a little bit? Can we change this a little bit? Yeah, I hope I'm making sense on that. I think that it's one of those deals where you have to be willing to change, but don't change just for change's sake. There's got to be a plan involved there.
Well, I think you're spot on. I think sometimes it's, we, again, lack of a better term here, we feel like if we go by the book, it kind of protects. Sometimes I think in leadership, you've got to trust the work, and you got to trust your study and your research and your experience, and you got to be willing to take on each challenge for what it is. And I think what really helps you do that, this is why I think off-season reflection or stepping away and having reflection time is so important, because when you're in the heat of the battle, sometimes it's hard not to have a knee-jerk reaction. Or if you do it too close to the moment of the most intense time of a school year, or, if you're a business leader or whatever it might be, you're probably too close. I think there has to be a time where you can step away from the intensity and have reflection. I'll give you some examples of things I like to do, Matt, that really work for me. A coaching staff I'm a part of, we started a couple of years back of trying to do something each off season together. One year it was journal entry, where I would just send out a question. I'm actually the assistant coach in this particular staff that I'm talking about, but I would send out just a basketball question, and we would just simply respond to it. It was just free writing. It was journal writing. We're the only ones that were going to see it. And we just shared it back and forth. We could agree, we could disagree. We could really talk about it. And I'll tell you, by the end of the year, it's kind of like what you talked about. Well, why do we teach that particular offensive move that way? Well, why do we teach defense this way? Why do we force the ball out of the paint? Why do we force the ball to the baseline? Why do we rebound or box out the way we do on a free throw? All those things came up throughout the course of probably 8, 9, 10 journal entries over the course of 3 summer months. And I thought we really grew as a staff. We've done book studies. This year we're doing a book study as a coaching staff, where one of your favorite books, I know, the Jay Billis Toughness book. Right. That's something that already has been a lot of fun. I think it's also important to step away and do it individually. Maybe this sounds like a shameless plug for expanding the zone here, but I think you podcasts to listen to, like I know, and I'm pretty sure you do too, Matt. I have 2 or 3 podcasts that I listen to pretty regularly, and it's probably not like, oh my gosh, I've got to find the new episode. I got to do this, and this, but each week I'm checking into them, and sure, some of them. Like, for example, Hardwood Hustle is one I really like on the basketball side. It talks about a lot of coaching and so forth. I'd highly recommend that one. But it's situations where it just gives you a chance to listen and play along and talk. And I hope that's what people do here on Expanding the Zone, is we're throwing these questions out. I hope our leaders and our coaches and our teachers and our principals are all thinking along with us and kind of playing along and really seeing how it applies to them, because to me, it's no different than any part of your life. Like in my spiritual life, I have devotional things I do each morning. You know what I'm saying? Right. I'll have a personal reading I do, but then we're also a part of a coach's devotional where we have a coach that sends out a text each and every morning. I look forward to it every morning. Just kind of gives you a little nugget, gives you a little scripture with, and those are things that just kind of give you a little bit of that recharge that I'm talking about. So does that correlation make sense, Matt? I mean, I think we're all busy. I mean, I know a lot of people are going to say, oh man, Shayne, I don't know if I have time to do that. I got this and this and this and this. Look, I get it. We're all busy, but I think if it's important to you, It may mean setting the alarm 15 minutes earlier, whatever it is, but you've got to figure out a way to put these things into your life if you're going to grow personally, so that you can make whatever it is you're a part of better. You follow me on that?
Yeah, there's no doubt. I think what you're talking about is like your own version of professional development, right? It's like, we have that within our schools, but you know, doing it more on your own and finding ways to learn. I mean, you mentioned podcasts, and if you're a busy person, like most people are in this profession, podcasts, I think, are a really cool way to develop, because you can sort of do it while you're driving. Well, for like up until now, up until next year, I've been driving a lot, throughout the course of a week. And when you're driving 45 minutes each way, it's really easy. I mean, there's a ton of podcasts I listen to, I think it's important too to have some balance in it. I mean, like I listen to some podcasts for professional development, like, the off-duty ADs is one that's great for athletic directors. Principal Matters podcast I've been listening to lately since I'm going to be taking on a principal position. And you mentioned Hardwood Hustle, Raise Your Game. Alan Stein's a good one for leadership. When the Brian and Tim Kite used to do theirs, now they've stepped away from it a little bit. But I also like listening to some, and I don't know about you, Shane. I think sometimes it's nice to take a break and just listen to something for entertainment, for enjoyment. I mean, I listen to Hank Haney podcast that has to do with golf. I listen to Feels Like Home podcast that's here locally with Marty Ford and Mike Throne. It's just really cool to listen to them interview local people. I like a podcast called Hope Through History, which is just kind of the history buff in me. I enjoy that type of thing. But so sometimes it's not like every single podcast you listen to, or every single book you read has to be tailored to your profession, right? But I think it's just mixing some of that in, whether it be, like you said, reading before you go to bed, getting up in the morning real quick and doing a quick devotion or whatever. I mean, let's be real honest here. This stuff doesn't take an enormous amount of time. Would you agree? I mean, honestly, like the podcast thing you can do while you're mowing the yard, driving your car. I just think if you have a hunger to learn and get better, then you find time for that, and you just kind of work it into your daily routine.
No, I do. I think it also gives you an opportunity to then grow personally and therefore professionally with the people you're working with or leading, or maybe who are leading you, because you mentioned like exit meetings and so forth. I know as we're at the end of the school year now, I had a chance to sit down with every single staff member from the Paint Valley Middle School. And when we put the schedule together, we thought, oh, it'd be 10, 12 minutes. And these meetings were going 18, 19, 20 minutes. And we almost had to but it was one of those things where the discussion was real. You know what I mean? It was just, There were so many good things coming at. And then we came back the next day and we had our full staff meeting. And again, we had great reflection, and what an opportunity to step back and to now look and see, okay, kind of like what you just said to start the show. Well, okay, we did this and this year. That was pretty important. Man, this didn't go very well. I wonder what else we could do better. So it was just a great opportunity to where if all we would have done is sent the kids home last Friday and been like, hey, that was fun, see you next year. As well as I do, you come back in August and yeah, you're kind of re-energized, but what are you really doing? Where now I feel like playing the role of listener, for 12, 13, 14 meetings, and just kind of listening and taking it all in, and then starting to put together some things on the schedule. Hey, I can tweak this and that in the schedule here. I can put this particular supervision in place, this, and this. And before you know it, you have a little bit better vision to go. Now, there'll still be plenty of time to step away in the summer and recharge the battery and all those things, but it's a little bit more purposeful and going. So I guess that's what I was saying at the beginning of the show is having a purpose to where, yeah, you don't have a knee-jerk reaction, but at the same time, man, you can't be one of those leaders that just kind of like as a coach, for example, you can't just be a coach that puts the whistle up on the shelf and said, "Hey, see you guys in 3 months or 4 months or whatever." It's not going to work that way. Your program's going to get passed up. Don't you feel like there has to be a little bit of that physical energy that has to still be there, and that kind of goes to taking care of yourself and making sure you're willing to put the time in if you're going to take on the role.
Well, yeah, there's no question. I mean, you mentioned coaching, and there are coaches out there, unfortunately, and I've seen it happen where, when practice rolls around, you just pull out last year's notebook, right? And these are the drills we ran. These are the plays we ran, and it's just the same thing year after year after year. And don't get me wrong, I think there's something to be said for stability and having a core set of beliefs and values, but there's also something to be said with being flexible and willing to adapt. And I think that's what you're talking about in these situations, just that willingness to change when there needs to be change.
Well, Matt, that's kind of the end of my checklist here on our opening show. I know as we get into next week, we have some neat things with some coaching ethics, and a couple of our college football coaches that are pretty well known here. They
Right.
kind of spouted off. That's going to be a neat show 41 as we get back at it. But I guess before we get out of here this first week, just if I were going to summarize the show, the way I always kind of look at expanding the zone as kind of part of our professional development, and we really enjoy doing this, and I hope other people get something out of each show as well. I guess the summary would be balance. You have to figure out what works for you, but you have to strengthen yourself mentally. You have to strengthen yourself physically, emotionally, what makes you the best version of you. And if you can do that, then all of a sudden you're going to be better in terms of if you're in charge of leading some people or if you're a part of a team, whatever role you play. To me, that balance of having reflection and having the opportunity to get better has to be one of the biggest takeaways from the show. A final thought from you before I close us out here.
Well, I agree with that, and I would also look at it from this angle. Utilize your off season, whatever that is, your time away where it's a little more relaxed and you're not maybe in the day-to-day battles, right? You mentioned it earlier. When you're in that day-to-day grind and you're in that pressure situation, sometimes you're putting out fires or you're reacting or you're just doing what you got to do. That when you have a little bit, whether it be as a teacher or an administrator, where you have the summer, or whether it be a coach, whatever your off season is, right, where you have some of that time, I think it's crucial to use that time to get better at your craft. I mean, whether it be collaborating like you do with your coaches with the journaling and the reading and all that, or whether it be with your own personal time, listening to stuff, podcasts, audiobooks, reading, just doing, I mean, honestly, just talking to other people in your profession. I think that's a great way to learn, picking people's brains who have already done it. Utilize that time because as well as I do, when you get into the battle, so to speak, you won't have time to do that. You'll just be going through your day-to-day operations. So utilize your off season.
Well, good stuff. Again, appreciate everybody coming back with us here in season 3. If you are listening to us out there on the podcast app, check us out on YouTube as well. Get a chance to watch us, turn us on there in the office or whatnot. You can also obviously get the audio that way. Or if you are watching us this time and you want to check us out on the podcast, as Matt was saying, in the car or when you're traveling and so forth, pretty much anywhere you get your podcast, just look for us, Expanding the Zone. And again, I think we've got some really great shows ahead here in season 3. If you're new to the show, take some time to go on back and listen to some of the first 39 shows. Again, not every show would be for you, but there might be some things there that really interest you and you kind of catch up as you go through the year. But Matt, on that note, look forward to a great season 3. We'll get on out of here and we'll be back at it next week on show 41. We talk coaching ethics. Thanks, everyone.